Tuckpointing is a way of using two contrasting colors of mortar in the mortar joints of brickwork, one color matching the bricks themselves, to give an artificial impression that very fine joints have been made. In some parts of the United States and Canada, some confusion may result as the term is often used interchangeably with pointing and repointing. History. The tuckpointing method was developed in England in the late 18th century to imitate brickwork constructed using rubbed bricks, which were bricks of fine, red finish that were made slightly oversized, and, after firing, then were individually abraded or cut, often by hand, to a precise size. When laid with white lime mortar, a neat finish of red brick contrasting with very fine white joints was obtained. Tuckpointing was a way of achieving a similar effect using cheap, unrubbed bricks. These were laid in a mortar of a matching color and a fine fillet of white material, usually pipe clay or putty, pushed into the joints before the mortar set. The term tuckpointing derives from an earlier, less sophisticated technique that was used with very uneven bricks. A thin line, called a tuck, was drawn in the flush-faced mortar, but left unfilled, to give the impression of well-formed brickwork. Tuckpointing tools. Professional tuckpointers use tuckpointing tools, which depending on country and local trade terminology sometimes may be termed jointers or tuckpointing irons. The tuckpointing tools themselves were originally made from forged iron by blacksmiths dating back to their origins in England during the 18th century. Over time, tuckpointing tools have now evolved into tools made from a hardened quality tool steel and shaped with a sharp pointed front with a flat base or a beaded or grooved base. The sharp point helps in making the tuck-pointed fine line smooth. This is similar in theory or principle to a concreter's float, whereby if one has to make the concrete surface rough, a concreter will use an upturned or rounded float, whereby when a concreter has to make the surface smooth, they will use a sharp-pointed float. Tuck-pointing tools have a wooden handle which is attached with a brass ferrule. Thicknesses or widths of tuck-pointing tools may be between 1 mm and 14 mm depending on the tuck-pointer's personal preferences and the type existing. Brick or stonework that a tuck-pointer is tuck-pointing. Tuck-pointers often use wider tools when tuck-pointing stonework. There are many different types of tuck-pointing tools now available. Standard tuck-pointing tools, flat-bottomed, square-beaded tuck-pointing tool, round beaded tuck-pointing tools, stub-nose and long-nose tuck-pointing tools, and also rarer, rounded corner tuck-pointing tools. Standard or flat-bottomed tuck-pointing tools used to be the most commonly used tuck-pointing tools, simply because they were the simplest tools to manufacture by early blacksmiths. Standard tuck-pointing tools come in widths from as little as 1 mm to up to 14 mm wide, so these tools can be used for very fine detailed work up to wide stone tuck-pointing work. Lengths of tools also vary depending on personal preferences, but the most common lengths are usually between 75 and 125 mm. However, professionals sometimes like a much shorter tool. For instance, one 30 mm long or 25 mm long, which may be flat on the front or slightly pointed in order to get into hard-to-reach spots. For instance, under window brickwork and in corners. These shorter length tuck-pointing tools are called stub-nose and long-nose tuck-pointing tools respectively, and they are now available in many different beaded or grooved profiles. As the names suggest, the stub nose is shorter in height while the long nose is longer. Tools are sometimes beaded. Beaded tuck-pointing tools were first crudely made by blacksmiths by hitting a rounded leading-edged hammer against a red-hot tuck-pointing iron. This process has now been refined, and now a small rounded or square fillet is ground into the flat of the tuck-pointing tool that comes into contact with the purpose or lines in the brickwork. Square beaded tuck pointing tools are available in 4 mm, 5 mm, 6 mm, 8 mm, 10 mm, 12 mm, and 13 mm wide ground square profiles. Round beaded tuck pointing tools are available in 5 mm, 6 mm, 8 mm, 10 mm, and 12 mm round profiles. Rounded corner tuck pointing tools are curved tuck pointing tools, that is, they do not have a flat bottom like the other tuck pointed tools but have a curved bottom surface which helps in applying lime putty around rounded bricks. They are available in standard and beaded profiles so that rounded bricks can be tuck pointed. The process of tuck pointing requires that the excess lime putty is cut away from the fine tuck pointed line. This is performed using a Frenchman knife or a double Frenchman knife. A Frenchman knife is a type of knife with a small sharp bent tip which allows the lime putty to be cut when guided along the tuck pointed line with a tuck pointer's straight edge. A double Frenchman knife works by cutting both top and bottom tuck pointed fine lines in one pass, making the process quicker. Double Frenchman knives can be adjusted to match the width of the fine tuck pointed lines. Tuck pointing is a fairly rare but not forgotten trade. Many historic homes with classic Italianate architecture like the Werribee Mansion at Werribee Park in Victoria, Australia west of Melbourne, show good examples of recent tuck pointing which display the contrast between the tuck-pointed white lines in the mortar between the bluestone architecture. Tuck pointing is widespread throughout the world and features strongly in the United Kingdom, Australia, the United States, Canada, New Zealand, France and other places in Europe. Although originally considered to be part of the bricklaying trade, it is now mainly performed by tuck pointing specialists.